podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. I'm Majestic.
Justice Rajee.
Yeah. So we're just going to jump right in. So Robert Sarver, owner of the Phoenix Suns and the, I cannot remember the WNBA team name off the top of my head.
The Mercury.
Rock and roll.
Phoenix Mercury.
Among whatever else he does to make them a $1 billion person that has lots of money. I think it was a bank, or is it head of a bank, or like this, In any event, it was revealed the NBA came out with their findings and result of the investigation. He's suspended from a year from the team, a fine, and basically multiple instances of, and I haven't been able to read the whole report. I'm not a journalist, so you know what I'm saying.
I was about to say, just we podcasters. You ain't had to read the whole report, man. Like
I'm just saying
that shit's on. That's like for the Times, man. I don't even know them political motherfuckers read the whole report.
I'm pretty sure they don't. Somebody on the staff read it. give them the highlights.
Man, you talk about Financial Times level, the Economist level, like the actual person that wrote the thing got to read the whole report, man. You give yourself some grace, man.
Indeed. And so with that, it was basically obvious mixed reaction, to say the least. I mean, I think the overwhelming reaction was folks were like, it's not enough. And I guess subsequent to that initial wave, I mean, it has been released that it's been at least posted that, he's going to look into selling the team. But it was a wild bit because it's like, and I think it's the thing that's interesting, or at least curious to me about this, and I'd like to get your thoughts, is as much as we live in this age and cancel culture and taking this and taking that, we constantly run up into this situation and these structures and these points where it's like, basically we can be socially dissatisfied with you. We can find your behavior, maybe despicable or, distasteful at a minimum, despicable, maybe at a higher level. But often unless you broke some like clear federal crime or state level crime, we kind of stuck with you. People, oh, he's canceled. And like, yeah, but Robert Sarver, he ain't losing no money. Like, he ain't losing no sleep. If anything, he about to make a big old profit when he sells his part of that team.
Yeah.
That team's gonna be $4 or $5 billion if the whole team sells, or if he's just selling his portion of ownership. Like, he's losing public face in a way that I never of the world where Robert Sarver matters on a social level. Most of us ain't hanging out with Robert Sarver to be like, oh man, I'm not going to talk to him at the country club next week. Like, what do we really talk about here, man? And it's such an interesting set of circumstances, like trying to process it, like from the position that we sit as really as like a fan of basketball, right? As a person that consumes the sport and talks about it, but understands, the larger, societal reality that, there's only 30 of these, and all the people that own them are fantastically wealthy. And just like all the other sports, probably a little questionable in some of their social choices, at least at some time. I think, I'd be a fair zone to cast. So yeah, I just wanted to think, what was some of your thoughts about that situation?
So I got a couple pieces. My first piece is fluffy and it's just whatever, but it's real. Why do the teams always have to have like these male and female Superman and Wonder Woman like names? Like the Sun and the Mercury. Like, why did it have to be like that, man? We're not as much as people talk about gender and all this stuff. Like, why does it always have to be like, here's the feminine element of it being hot, like the Timberwolves, the Lynx. Like it's another animal.
Yeah.
It's also in the woods. Like it,
Makes sense. Budgets.
it's it is some other thing. Minnesota nice people. It is some other that like you know what I mean. Like I mean, let's be real. And you know, I'm editorializing. Anybody listening, this is Lord B to say don't judge. It's like women's basketball is not necessarily. It's known for being really, I think, thoughtful, strategic. But it's not like they're knocking people down and you need like menacing names in order to like define the thing. Like you just don't, man. Like
I
so
think
I so that's just like I like
it's good questions.
I,
I'm
I
pretty
know you
sure
know
my first thought is that somewhere in one of those early meetings, it was like, well, look, if we use basically the same color patterns, we could save on fabric.
oh yeah that and the idea for the psychology of humans and
Yeah.
in sports psychology, which is a whole other psychology, that you have a name that reminds you of the other name, assuming that the other name actually matters anyway, which is a
Right.
whole different conversation.
Yeah.
With like what you see in hockey in particular, when teams start moving places to keep the name that they was at, like the Dallas Stars when they had that name, like it was the Minnesota North Stars, then it was the Dallas Stars, right?
Yeah.
Like the Hartford Whalers, and then the Whalers moved. But so that's number one. I just want us to think about
Yeah.
the fact that it doesn't have to, and maybe it doesn't have to have the same color palette, and maybe this name can be something that actually means something to people without saying like Mercury. Like most people even know what the hell Mercury does outside of it being something we frame for heat. But anyway, so now I got that out of the way.
Rock and roll.
So it's an interesting thing about Robert Sarver. He's basically being kicked out of a country club, right? Like this is essentially what's happening to him. Like nothing is happening to Robert Sarver. Robert Sarver he bought, you know, a team. In the time that he bought the team, they got a female team. It's by all accounts a really successful running organization. He's going to make a gazillion dollars, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so as his punishment for being an overall, you know, jerk and racist and sexist, he's going to make however many billions of dollars. It's actually the kind of thing that we think moves society along, but I'm never quite sure if it moves society along as much as we think it moves society along. Because we think that like he's being punished, where by the time you buy an NBA team, to your point, you're fantastically wealthy. You inhabit another kind of space in the global market, in like you know the global elite, right? To be able to do that. That's why if you look at, you know, even when you talk about black folks and they like buy a team, none of them are like the majority owners of the team. Like they put up the capital to
Mhm.
buy the team. The team is still the money came from somewhere else. Like we should always understand that. And so for me, it's like you're getting rid of these people who are not quote unquote good people while he makes $1 billion and goes off to something else and you sell to someone else that you hope is not at least openly a bad person or has not gotten so comfortable with the old environments. And like to your point, many of them which they inhabit spaces that are harmful to black and brown people, harmful to I guess the term BIPOC is what people use. Like or harmful to women, harmful to people with different orientations, right? Like
Mhm.
they inhabit these spaces with everything else they do. He held on to an asset. The asset is worth way more than what he paid for it, and he's going to get paid. So I just want to submit that I think that we have to think about, to your point, in this idea of people being canceled. What's the real impact of this? You could argue he can't hold on to the asset as long as he would like to, right? That you could ascertain that that's the punishment.
Mhm.
But he's basically telling you, okay, you banned me for a year of all of y'all that like to hang out with each other. Y'all said I'm bad for business because that's essentially what this is. It's just like the co-op in The Wire, right? All the other people who were part of the co-op said you're bad for business,
Yeah,
and here's your punishment for being bad for business.
yeah. We're gonna send you.
And you say, okay, no problem. I'm taking my marbles and leaving the playground.
Right.
Cash me out, right?
Mhm.
So I think you bring up a really good point. I mean, one, his conduct was despicable. Um, I do have to think about. It's interesting to think about a place like Phoenix and like Arizona broadly that you find obviously you're people from there because the indigenous communities are from there, and then you find people who've been there for relatively a while, but it's a place everyone's going to. So sometimes I think about those places and think like, are there like the structures in place where people are as sensitive about certain things as they are in other cities? Like, would you be someone that felt you could say that in New York, right? Would you be someone that felt like you could say that those kind of things in Detroit?
Mhm.
Knowing the fan base, knowing the kind of thing, right? Versus Phoenix, where everyone's new to the place. It's playing fast and loose as the California that's not California, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, where can I be close to California, but not California? Let's not even talk about the challenging politics of Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not so long ago they would not celebrate MLK holiday, right? Chuck D famously did
Mhm.
a song "By the Time I Get to Arizona." So I think there's also some of I'm going to posit that there's some of that wrapped up in this dialogue um as well. And my third point is that I think it makes us have this broader conversation of why exactly are sports in organizations this why why are they so coveted? Like if you told me that the Phoenix Suns are worth billions of dollars, right? You gonna have to take me to talk to somebody on Bloomberg or something because I don't understand how a team that's won one championship in I don't know ever
Yeah. Yeah, they did win one, right? Didn't they?
they won one like what 2 years ago or something. They
No,
didn't win
no.
or they got to the finals.
They got to the finals. They
Okay,
got in the. They don't think they ever won. They lost in the '70s to the Celtics, right?
yeah, they lost in '70 to the Celtics. Then they were
Lost to the
good during the
Bulls.
right. Lost to the Bulls. They were the Kevin Johnson. Then they went and got Barkley. Then they didn't win. Right, so they got to the finals and they lost to the Bucks. Right, maybe.
Yeah, they lost to the Bucks 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
they lost to the Bucks. Yeah, kind of the most underwhelming. The idea of the most underwhelming NBA Finals in some time. But so yeah, like a team that hasn't won, right, is worth this much money. So that's just another baffling part of the psychology of sports. Um, because teams who don't win, like for example, in soccer, the teams that are worth a lot are the teams that win.
Well, but they also,
uh,
oddly enough, in countries that have much more social democracy, operate fully capitalist, meaning the teams that got the most money buy all the best players.
oh, absolutely.
Nobody,
No, no,
nobody
this is not a
skips a
fair
beat.
conversation.
Nobody
No,
skips a beat thinking about it.
no, this is not a fair conversation. No, no, everyone wants a winner. That's why every league has two or three teams that are just really good, and the rest aren't. So you're absolutely
Yeah,
correct.
only in
Uh,
America do we get everybody get all socialists when you start talking about competition. Well, hey, wait a minute now. You can't let them get all the good players. Like, hey man, big bank take little bank, man. Let's go. New York Giants should win Super Bowl every year. If it was about
yeah,
market value, we should have
yeah,
all the
you're
good
right.
players. Well, I mean, I've stated in some place before. Basically, the whole NFL exists because the New York team decided to be okay sharing the money. They didn't have to,
Mm,
but I'm not gonna bring that up. I'll say that for later.
yeah, that's a cabal on another level. But yes, that's my take on it. That's my take
All right. Well, the only thing else I want to add, one, just for the record, I mean, what I have read about it and studied about it, I mean, as much as despicable his flagrant use of, well, just put like this, everybody, I'm gonna take it as racial animus if you use the N word around me. I don't care what your intent was. Just put it out there. And second, the treatment of women within that organization, and generally the issue of the treatment of women as it shows up in some of these matters, the pending issue with the Washington, Cobra commanders, you know what I'm saying, and whatever's happening with them. Like, I think that's still, despite us being in this world where people will reference it as a post Me Too, and like people actually being tuned in to the way women are treated professionally in the workplace, it's like it still is the core issue that was, even more rampant and out of sorts with this. And that generally, I'm just always surprised that it doesn't appear, right, or at least it's not being reported, if the degree to which these things showing up cast light on other things that these, again, fantastically wealthy people are running, and how well they are treating people, probably in industries that involve a lot more people, right? A lot more staff of whatever the work that may be being done, and probably have a lot larger direct impact on different communities being the place of folks employment. And that if you would run, I guess some people say, well, you can run an NBA team this way, and different businesses can be run different ways. I hear that, but I gotta at least say we should peek back the covers a little bit. I mean, it just like the CEOs in John Gruden's situation, just talking wild. I'm like, man, wonder if anybody call HR to take a look at some of their previous filing. I mean, I know HR is there to protect the company; they're not actually there for as a neutral source to protect, some sense of right in the world. But it's just we still have this same problem of the way people run things that you know is not healthy. It's not right and exact. It's not ethically sound. And I think we it gets highlighted in the form of these very public facing and publicly visible entities that are sports teams, in an entertainment product that crosses over into like a cultural representation of a region or a city, right? Um, but then people's like investigation of the wrongdoing, so to speak, kind of stops at the gate, and it's like, oh well, he could act wild at his team, but he wouldn't run his bank that way, would he? In my mind, it's like, why wouldn't you? Like,
See, I actually think I think it's like one of the problems is we create these industries worth billions of dollars that are under little to no regulation. Like, it's not like the Department of Labor comes in to check on what's happening at the Phoenix Suns,
right,
right? Like,
right,
there's a whistleblower that can say, "Hey, Enron's, creating profits at where there are none," right? Like,
right.
these people have stole this much money, right? And to the degree with your regulatory institutions, and that there's a variety of there's a lot of space on the spectrum for how people see the role of regulatory institutions. But just for the conversation, a lot of them other ones are under those things. As much as people will say, I've now learned, like, the top banks in America have to go to Congress.
Mm,
Like, they have to go.
yeah.
It's like last week, they all went, the top 7 banks in America all went and testified.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't go and testify, you're going to have another problem. Like, there's going to be something else happening down the road, right? If you were to then take all that money that you're quote unquote theoretically worth, right, and go buy a lacrosse team or basketball team, no one's going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of the challenge is these are places for these alter egos that don't have any regulatory construct.
Mm-hmm. I see.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
they are like, again, this is clearly who you are. So it's not about that you're a better person when you run your bank. You just shut up because they got stuff like civil rights violations, and the OCC comes in and they want to know what you're doing. Like, banks have a gazillion lawyers generally who either worked in government or know exactly what government wants to make sure that the bank doesn't do that,
Yeah.
especially when it's a public bank,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Private banks have a whole nother thing. So I think like in line with your point though, this gives them a chance to be who they really are. Dan Snyder got a chance to be who he really was. Robert Sarver is getting a chance to be who he really was. What was the dude that owned the Clippers?
Oh, Sterling, not Sterling.
Sterling.
Yeah, Dom Sterling.
Well, Sterling was always who he was. The records on that was real estate, so that was clear. He was who he was before, and then he was who he was. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just think it's part of this sports phenomena that we allow that to happen. But that it's almost like this: your alter ego comes out of this behavior.
So, I mean, for the record, I guess I would say I guess I'm pleased that he's going to sell the team. I mean, but it doesn't really change all the other factors that like made owning that team and him being an owner of the team and everything else that went around along with that any, really substantially different. And then only other thing that, I just think it's interesting about it is just the idea that like, there's sometimes job opportunities and opportunities to do something where it's like, yeah, this dude's not cool, but there's only 30 of these, so I'm going to be the GM of the Phoenix Suns or fill in the blank, franchise, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when people go like, well, how could you work for someone like that? Like, well, I mean, this is the thing I'm really good at, and there's only 30 of them, so I'm taking it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do
And
it.
there's a cognitive dissonance, God. I think there's a cognitive, like I think society has a cognitive dissonance, not understanding that yes, the owner can be an entire asshole, just like your boss can be an asshole, or also just like you can be an asshole too for people that work with you.
Yeah, they
Because
be
it's
like, I hate
important for us to remember that.
that.
Like sometimes we be like, "Oh, the boss is horrible." What about when you're the boss?
Hey,
What about when you're actually the person that's the prick? What I'm saying is like, but I mean, we can't blame Monty Williams for that,
yeah,
right? Like by all accounts, the coach, the GM. I mean, they're running a top flight, thoughtful, well run organization. That a coach of the NBA, as much as we like to think about, oh man, he's the coach of the insert team, he's still middle management.
yeah, yeah. No, you're significant middle management, but you're definitely middle management. There's like, yeah,
There's
there's a
still two or
whole,
three, there's still three, usually three or four people above you in the system.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Is the reason
absolutely.
why general managers get fired.
Yep.
And general managers hire coaches. So just to say, we put it in the context of broader society, just as in many organizations, there's a disconnect between what is happening in middle management and the leadership, and that can go good or bad. In the same way, I think there's a disconnect there with what appears to be a great job that Monty Williams and the brothers and sisters at in Phoenix are actually doing.
Yeah, yeah. So, man, props to them. Hope they come together. So we got just a little bit of time. I wanted to touch base, so we're gonna make a rough jump, just at least to this forecast, and we can come back to it. So this is Mississippi welfare money, or I should just say the TANF money. It's not actually because, well, anyway, Brett Farve is the signature person that people know of. That folks are like, why aren't people talking about this more? Why isn't the media digging into this deeper? But essentially, that um, you know, the use of a state government instead of using funds that are actually meant to go to help needy families. Um, you know, one that I just want to establish with people so that they understand it's not uncommon for states, especially politically, don't believe or are run by people who don't believe in actually using federal resources that are directed towards need and support for families. That is their essential goal, to use as little of that money as possible. And I wish I could say it in a more nice way, but basically, as I see it, because they're hateful, terrible people who don't think that these folks are deserving of the dignity and the well-being that those funds would very minimally help to make life a little easier. But then to misappropriate those funds for other things, including trying to build a volleyball stadium to who knows what, right? Like there's an actual importance in every state um around like if just because you heard some money was supposed to go to something, finding out if the money ever actually happened. Because a lot of times it's a great deal. Same way I brought up in our conversations um about like all the corporate pledges to put money into this to that in the summer of 2020, where a lot of them checks ain't never reached the destination. You know what I'm saying? They made a pledge at the fundraiser, but they ain't never make it to the fiscal office. Um, so saying that to say the the implication though that a prominent member of probably the state's lore, right, and Brett Favre would be participating in this cabal, I guess we could say, to misappropriate funds. I mean, color me not the only person that maybe is not surprised by that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best landing place, but that's where I'm at with it. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure these folks are used to misappropriating funds and then being like, yeah, man, government's so corrupt. It's like, you know.
Well, yeah, I think it's one. It kind of goes back to this kind of around the Sarver thing. Let's not assume because someone is extremely good at taking a football, seeing what's happening on the field, and throwing it down the field, or making decisions, which I'm not minimizing. Someone being good at their thing. But we should not conflate that with actually being an okay human. We have been taught that we would like to think that a lot of the people who do those things well are okay humans, but in reality, they have many of the same frailties that all the rest of us do.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're good at that thing doesn't mean they're good at life, right? They're not necessarily good at life. And I think as an example of Brett Favre, it's clearly not good at lifing. There's also, to your point, a broader system of, hey, won't you give people stuff? And then there's people who constantly get empowered whose perspective is, hey, why don't we not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And how you resolve those issues and whether that's this issue or rather that's the water issue in Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
you constantly run up against like this concept where people in power have decided for their particular perspective of ideology and I have a judgment on a city not having water. I have a judgment on that. Like I have a judgment. I don't have a judgment on Brett Favre other than to say that Brett Favre should go through the same thing anyone else who gets caught for fraud. The same thing that people took money and went and bought crab. We think they went and bought crab legs. I do know some people did go buy crab legs. that is true. Some people created ghost consulting and party and that's true. Like that's not, that's not me
Right.
knocking my people. That's true.
Yeah.
The same way they gonna get jammed up is the same way Brett Favre should get jammed up to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah.
I don't have a perspective other than the fact he wore a Green Bay a Green Bay helmet, which was, a thing we have we don't have allegiance to Green Bay, but they're insignias. But besides that, I don't, man, throw him under the jail.
I like to say, I mean, just on a lighter note, that somewhere like, hey, Brett, they about to bring you a deal. Take it.
Yeah.
I mean, I ain't telling you to snitch, but I wouldn't be surprised if you was like, hey, man, they was tripping. I thought that money was cool. I mean, I asked, but then they said it was cool. I mean,
Man,
I didn't know.
Brett Favre ain't going to jail. Brett is telling on everybody going. Because listen, I'm real. It's more to be revealed. I'm sure it's someone that said in his ear, hey man, they got this money coming down. We can build a volleyball stadium. People okay, they already got that PPP money. Right? Like, okay.
Oh, really? It
Like,
just sits there at the state. They don't never use that money. Oh, yeah, it
right.
doesn't even get used. Oh, really? Oh man, we can get some of that money. Yeah, we can get some of that money. All right.
Listen, I'm telling you, he's telling on that person. And if you tell on him, Brett, you tell on him and whatever. If you don't tell him, you're under the jail. Because I personally do not use the fact that you were really good at twirling a football down, and even the fact that how you went out with Aaron Rodgers, who working through many of his challenges. Yeah, I can tell there you wasn't the best human, right? Like so, But again, I want to broaden, and I know
Yeah.
your vantage point as well. Like broaden it to being like you have a state that is amongst the poorest in the country.
Yeah. And
And
that's
then
it.
just frankly,
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I was gonna say just it has a history of being openly hostile to a significant part of its electorate. Like openly, like, yeah, we don't want to help you. If we can not help you, even though they're trying to make us help you, we're not going to help you. We're going to make this hard. Also, vis-a-vis Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, if like this is not connected to that. You know what I mean? And 77 million, I mean, Brett and them is tapped around 5, but it's $77 million in money that could have been going to help people with resources that like, oh, we not distributing that money. You know what I'm saying? Or we're distributing it in a way that is inappropriate. We are sending Ted DiBiase's son to drug rehab and paying him to do education around inner city kids and diagnosing when they may be using drugs. Like, stop playing with me.
wow.
Like, stop playing with
Well,
me.
first of all, the fact we do is Ted DiBiase's son is again owing to this. You know what? This whole episode is owing to this collective mythos about fucking sports and entertainment, dog. Like the fact that but any other way, the fact that he was a $1 million man, Ted DiBiase, and that him also being an old aging entertainer
Mhm.
was part of redirecting resources. But again, I mean, I don't want to go meta here, but there's also this bigger conversation around the role of states' rights.
Mm.
And this plays itself out in Roe v. Wade. This plays itself out in some electoral politics, right? Like this is a model by which there's a certain set of people have said, "Yo, why don't we create a system that we control all the stuff at this quasi local level or the we'll call it the meso level for this conversation,
Mhm.
and then we'll make sure that our people control the meso level of every state,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so that'll be the politics." You know what I mean? And so it's just a crazy idea for everyone at the federal government to be like, send it down to the states. The states like, thanks. And then all the people in the states happen to be the same people who were connected to people at the federal government saying, send it down to the states. And then doing things that are not helpful to the majority of the population. And that's fair to say. That's not me kind of editorializing there, right?
Mhm.
So, and continuing to have the poorest state in the nation. Meanwhile, everyone clearly ain't poor because Brett Farve's trying to get some money to build a volleyball stadium, and the $1 million man's son is trying to do Dare. I guess he's doing the 2022 Dare. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, it. I guess the lesson or the point I want to elevate for folks is never underestimate the power of like kind of perceived social capital of someone's importance, right? And the way that then translates into opportunity, earned and unearned, and that if it's happening in this state, there's a good chance, we like to go, the government is doing something, nefarious. I'm like, no, people are doing something nefarious, and the government might be their vehicle to try to pull that thing off, right? And so that's all I had. I just didn't want to go unsaid.
Well, no, I think you're right. And I think we have to, again, what I take from it is that just because they got rich and just because they do a thing well doesn't mean that they're good people.
Nope.
Like, And, we have to disabuse ourselves of those notions that we've been finally trained with over the last, specifically, I guess, 40, 50 years, right? Like, there are some cartoons and you see some comic books where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did a sky hook and then talk to kids and shit. But really, it's not like, really, I guess Joe Namath. So you could argue about 50 years, but it's really taken place in the last 30 to 40
Yeah.
of, listen, man, these people got frailties just like you. And you should not expect that they will do the right thing just because they happen to do a thing well.
So with that, I'm gonna let you go. You know what I'm saying? We can add on. There's some other things happening in America. We know. We're not gonna talk about that today. We'll talk about it maybe never, but we'll see. Until then, I'm gonna say that's all I got. So peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, Majestic. Good Brothers is a part of the Oldhead podcast brought to you by me, Justice Rajee. You can support the podcast by listening, sharing, rating, and subscribing wherever you listen. You can also support the podcast by joining Patreon and locate Justice Rajee and become a subscriber. And you can contribute to me keeping this channel of creativity open and alive. Otherwise, it's the end of the summer and the beginning of the autumn and the fall. So, enjoy some sun while it lasts. Also, enjoy some of these crisp autumn evenings. You know what I'm saying? Bust out the sweaters and the Timberlands, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever have you. So, in any event, be safe, and until next time, peace.